What if the woman you trusted to care for your child was the one your husband once loved? What if every warm smile, every kind gesture, every lullaby wasn't kindness at all, but a plan? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about obsession, identity, and a woman who walked straight into someone else's life, claiming it piece by piece. Stay with us because what you're about to hear might make you question every stranger who gets too close. And remember, sometimes the past doesn't knock. It lets itself in. It started on a rainy Tuesday morning, the kind where the sky hangs low like it's weighed down by secrets. Julia stood by the kitchen window, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she hadn't taken a sip from. The storm outside mirrored the silence in her house, a silence too loud since she left her corporate job to care for her daughter, Lily, full-time. But today everything was about to change. They had finally decided to hire help, a nanny to ease the growing tension between Julia's exhaustion and her husband's absence. Julia thought it would be simple, find someone kind, responsible, maybe with a bit of warmth. What she didn't expect was the woman who would walk through her front door. The agency had sent over a few profiles. Julia had picked one almost at random, soft smile, good references, background check spotless. When the doorbell rang at exactly 9 a.m., Julia took one last look in the hallway mirror, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and opened the door. The woman standing there wore a beige coat, her face partially obscured by the drizzle. But when she pulled down her hood, Julia's stomach twisted. She knew that face. Familiar, too familiar. The woman introduced herself as Claire. Julia tried to smile. "Hi, you look kind of familiar." Claire tilted her head and chuckled. "I get that a lot. Maybe I just have one of those faces." But Julia couldn't shake the chill creeping up her spine. She couldn't place her immediately, but something inside her whispered, "Pay attention." Claire was charming. She bonded with Lily almost instantly, folding into the rhythm of the house like she'd been part of it forever. She cooked, cleaned, even remembered Julia's favorite tea. Michael, Julia's husband, barely reacted when Julia mentioned the new nanny. "Great," he said absently, not looking up from his phone. "Hope she's better than the last one." The unease Julia felt never fully left. There was something too perfect about Claire. The way she knew where the spare towels were kept without asking. The way she hummed a lullaby that Julia hadn't heard in years, but that used to play from an old music box Michael once gave to a woman before Julia entered his life. A week passed. Claire stayed overnight a few times when Julia was feeling unwell. Each time, Michael seemed more relaxed, less irritable. And Julia noticed the subtle glances between them, just flickers, barely there, but unmistakable once seen. One night, Julia woke up thirsty and padded softly to the kitchen. As she passed the living room, she saw Claire sitting alone, lit only by the soft blue light of the TV, flipping through a photo album that had been buried in their storage closet. Julia froze. That album had been from Michael's university days. No one was supposed to know where it was. She didn't confront her. Not yet. The next morning, she asked Claire casually, "Did you have a chance to look through that old album?" Claire smiled without missing a beat. "Oh no, must have been Lily. Kids are curious." But Lily didn't even know it existed. Julia's hands shook when she put the dishes away. Her mind was racing, each little coincidence stacking into a picture she didn't want to see. She started digging. She went through Michael's emails, not even feeling guilty. She searched his old Facebook photos. Scanned his call logs. Nothing solid. But her gut wouldn't let it go. Claire knew too much. Her timing was too perfect. Her familiarity too sharp to be chance. And then Julia found it, an old photo buried in a tagged album from 12 years ago. Michael, arms around a woman. Smiling. Happy. And that woman was Claire. She wasn't just a nanny. She was Michael's ex. Julia's knees buckled. Her breath caught in her throat. The pieces slammed into place like thunder cracking through the silence. Claire wasn't a stranger. She had history. She had motive. And she was inside their home every day. Julia didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the dark ceiling. The image of Claire laughing in Michael's arms 12 years ago burned behind her eyelids. Questions tore through her like glass. Why was Claire here now? Had she known Michael lived here? Had this been a plan all along? Was Michael still in love with her? Did he know she was the nanny? The next morning, Julia couldn't pretend anymore. Her voice was hoarse, her hands cold as she poured cereal for Lily, who chattered innocently about school. Claire hummed in the kitchen, brewing coffee, completely at ease. Julia's throat tightened. There was something deeply cruel about seeing someone fit so perfectly into your life when they weren't supposed to be there at all. She needed answers. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Julia waited until Michael stepped into the shower. She walked into the kitchen where Claire was wiping the counter. Julia leaned on the island, her eyes fixed. "You knew him, didn't you?" Claire didn't even flinch. She set the sponge down carefully as if she'd expected this moment. "Yes." The honesty hit harder than a lie. "How long were you going to pretend?" Julia asked, trying to control the tremble in her voice. Claire met her eyes. "I wasn't pretending. I didn't come here for him. I applied for the job because I needed it. It wasn't supposed to be like this." "But you stayed," Julia snapped, her voice rising. "You saw him and you stayed." Claire took a step back, swallowing hard. "Because I needed the money. And because when I saw Lily, I saw something I never had. A chance to matter again." Julia's heart ached, but her fury was louder. "You don't belong here. You should have told me." "I was going to," Claire whispered. "But then I saw how lonely you were. I thought maybe I could help. Just stay in the background." "You don't get to decide that," Julia hissed. At that moment, Michael entered the kitchen, towel slung over his shoulder, hair dripping. He paused at the doorway, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" Julia didn't hesitate. "Tell me the truth. Did you know Claire was your ex when she started working here?" Michael froze. Claire turned away. And then he exhaled. "I knew the second I saw her." Julia stepped back, the breath knocked out of her. "So you lied to me? Every day?" Michael looked ashamed. "I didn't want to blow it all up. You were finally happy again." "Lily was happy. I thought maybe it would be okay." "You thought wrong," Julia whispered. She left the room before anyone could say anything else. That night, she slept in Lily's room. Curled up beside her daughter, Julia listened to the soft rhythm of her breathing and felt the weight of betrayal pressing down like a boulder on her chest. The next few days were a blur. Claire kept her distance, never overstepping. Michael tiptoed around the house, silent, guilty. Julia tried to act normal for Lily's sake, but her smiles cracked too easily. And yet, something didn't sit right. If Claire had really moved on, why hadn't she told Julia the truth from the start? If Michael was so desperate to preserve peace, why hadn't he asked her to leave? The idea formed slowly, like ice in a glass, cold and inevitable. What if Claire didn't come back just for the job? What if she wanted more? One afternoon, Julia picked Lily up from school early. The teacher said Claire had already arrived and taken her. Julia's blood turned to ice. She sped home, heart in her throat, nearly crashing twice. When she burst through the front door, Lily was fine, watching cartoons, Claire folding laundry beside her. But the way Claire looked up at Julia, calm, unfazed, almost smug, made something inside Julia snap. "I'm done," she said. "You're fired." Claire didn't argue. She stood up slowly, folded the last shirt, and said quietly, "I never meant to hurt you." Julia didn't answer. She couldn't. As Claire walked out, Julia locked the door behind her. But peace didn't come. Only more questions. Later that night, Julia checked the nanny agency website. Claire wasn't listed anymore. She looked up Claire's full name in public records. And then, like a nightmare tearing through a thin veil of denial, she saw it. Claire had legally changed her last name. 2 years ago. To Julia's married name. She hadn't just come back to haunt her past. She'd come back to steal her life. The next morning, the air in the house was colder. Not the temperature, but the energy. Lily noticed it first. "Where's Claire?" she asked, rubbing her eyes as she came downstairs. Julia forced a smile. "Claire had to go away for a while, sweetheart." "Will she come back?" Julia hesitated. "I don't think so, baby." Lily seemed confused but accepted the answer. Julia, on the other hand, couldn't accept anything anymore. Not the silence from Michael. Not the truth she'd uncovered. Not the gnawing feeling that Claire wasn't done. She couldn't stop thinking about the name change. Claire had legally changed her surname to Wesley, Julia's married name. It wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. But why? Julia called the nanny agency, demanding answers. The woman on the phone sounded nervous. "We vetted her. Everything looked fine, references, experience, background checks. She had a different last name when she applied." "Did she use an alias?" "No, not exactly. She had recently changed it. It's legal. That's all we check." Julia hung up, her hands shaking. It was all legal, all real, but it felt like a trap. Michael avoided the subject entirely. Every time Julia brought up Claire, he grew quiet, evasive. It only made her suspicions darker. One night, Julia went through their home security footage. She had almost forgotten that Michael had installed cameras outside the house years ago after a burglary scare. She pulled up the folder, scrolled through the thumbnails, and stopped. There was Claire. A week before she started working with them. Standing outside the house. Watching. Not approaching the door. Not delivering a resume. Just watching. For 30 minutes straight. Julia stared at the footage, heart pounding. Claire had been scoping them out. This wasn't about a job. This was a plan. Suddenly, the memories began to warp in her head. Claire's kindness didn't seem so kind anymore. Her attentiveness to Lily wasn't motherly. It was possessive. The way she folded Michael's clothes. The way she hummed that lullaby. The way she never once looked surprised at anything in the house. It was all rehearsed. Julia's thoughts spiraled. Was Claire trying to become her? To take her place? The next day, Julia went to the courthouse. She requested public records. Claire's name change documents. It took hours, but when the clerk handed her the file, Julia sat on the steps outside and opened it. Inside were scanned documents, legal forms, court declarations, and something else. A handwritten letter. It was dated 2 years ago, addressed to the Honorable Judge Whitmore, written by Claire herself, asking for her name change to be expedited due to personal trauma and identity rebuilding. She claimed she had survived an emotionally abusive relationship, and that taking the surname Wesley was a symbol of reclaiming strength. Julia's hands shook as she read the words. She felt cold and confused. Was Claire telling the truth? Was there something about Michael she didn't know? Or was this just another lie? Another layer of manipulation? That night, she confronted Michael. She showed him the letter, the court file, the name change. He read it slowly, face unreadable. "I didn't know about this," he murmured. "I swear." Julia watched his eyes. They didn't flinch. But something was wrong. "Did you hurt her?" she asked quietly. Back then, Michael's jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" He looked at her. Really looked at her. "We were young. I broke her heart. She didn't take it well. But I never laid a hand on her. I never meant for her to carry this." Julia stared at him, trying to read between the cracks. "She didn't just want a job," she whispered. "She wanted to come back to this house. To us. Maybe even to you." Michael didn't respond. The silence screamed louder than words. Julia didn't sleep again that night. Every creak in the house felt louder. Every shadow deeper. She lay awake wondering if she ever truly knew the man she married, or the woman she'd let care for her child. The lines between trust and betrayal had blurred into something cruel and shapeless. And the worst part was, she wasn't sure if the nightmare was over. The next morning, Michael left early for work. He didn't kiss her goodbye. Julia stood in the kitchen, staring at the spot Claire used to stand. Laughing, humming, folding napkins like she belonged there. The image of her standing outside their home for 30 minutes still haunted Julia's mind. This wasn't over. Claire hadn't walked away for good. She was still out there, and Julia could feel her presence, like a storm circling just beyond the horizon. The paranoia grew like mold. Julia started checking the locks 3 times before bed. She changed her passwords. She called the school to set up a secret pickup password for Lily. But none of it stopped the feeling. That feeling. Like eyes watching from somewhere just out of view. Then, strange things began to happen. A doll Lily had lost weeks ago appeared on her pillow. An old photo of Julia and Michael, one they had thrown out years ago, was found taped to their mailbox. And one night, the front door was left wide open, though Julia swore she had locked it. Michael insisted she was imagining things. "You're letting this get into your head," he said, voice tired. Claire's gone. She's not coming back. But Julia wasn't so sure. She needed proof. Something solid. Something real. So she did something desperate. She called Claire. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then, hello. The voice on the other end was calm. So familiar it made Julia's spine tighten. It's Julia, she said, her own voice shaky. I need to talk to you. Pause. Then, I was wondering when you'd call. They agreed to meet. Neutral ground. A quiet cafe near the edge of town. Claire showed up exactly on time. Same beige coat. Same poised smile. But something in her eyes had changed. No longer soft. Now sharp. Like glass. I want to understand, Julia said, skipping the pleasantries. What do you want from us? Claire stirred her tea slowly. I wanted peace. At first. And now. I want what was mine. You mean Michael? Claire laughed quietly. I mean the life I should have had. The life you took. Julia's jaw clenched. I didn't take anything. He left you. And you got the version of him I never had. The family. The warmth. The house. The daughter. This isn't about you, Julia said. It's about what's right. And what you're doing, showing up, changing your name, coming into our home. It's wrong. Claire leaned forward. Her voice was a whisper. Wrong? What's wrong is you pretending you're the victim. You think you can erase people and they just disappear. Julia stood. Her heart pounded like thunder in her ears. Stay away from my family. I swear to God. Claire's smile returned, cold as ice. Already too late, Julia. Julia left without finishing her coffee. She changed their locks that night, installed new security cameras, called a lawyer. Every step was a line drawn in the sand. But the storm didn't end there. 2 nights later, Lily went missing. Her bed was empty. The window cracked open. Julia screamed. Police came. Dogs. Helicopters. Neighbors with flashlights. Michael sobbed on the porch as officers searched the woods. Then came a phone call. Blocked number. Julia answered, hands shaking. Hello. A soft, chilling voice. She's safe. But she needed to see what real love feels like. It was Claire. The line went dead. Julia collapsed to the floor. But then, minutes later, a patrol officer found Lily. She was at the local church, sitting in the front pew cradling a doll. She said a nice lady had brought her there and told her to wait for her mom. There were no cameras, no witnesses, nothing but a red ribbon left on the bench. Claire was gone again. The police filed reports. A warrant was issued. Claire became a ghost, slipping through cracks no one could see. Michael wanted to move, change cities, start over. But Julia refused. She stood in their living room holding Lily close and looked around at the house they had built. I'm not running, she said. She already took too much. Instead, Julia took control. Therapy for Lily, legal action, security systems, and a fire inside her. One that refused to let fear dictate her life. Claire had tried to become her. But Julia would make damn sure that she would never succeed. She came back not to revisit the past, but to rewrite it. What began as a quiet return turned into a silent war for identity, for family, for love. Some ghosts don't haunt. They impersonate. And in a world where memories can be rewritten and trust can be forged with a smile, how do you know who someone really is until it's too late? If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking true life stories. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were Julia?